What really happened to Emperor Haile Selassie? Was the Lion of Judah truly taken by natural causes? Or was his death a carefully orchestrated assassination? How did a ruler once revered as the defender of African sovereignty meet such a grim and dishonorable end? In 1974, the unthinkable happened. Haile Selassie, the mighty emperor of Ethiopia, was overthrown, stripped of power, isolated in the Grand Palace, his once loyal guards replaced by hostile soldiers, and then, one fateful night in August 1975, he vanished. But here's the real question. Why was the truth buried for decades? Who ordered his murder? And why was his body hidden beneath a toilet for years? This is not just a story of a fallen emperor, it's a tale of betrayal, power, and a chilling conspiracy that changed Ethiopia forever. Stay with us as we uncover the brutal and mysterious murder of Haile Selassie. Born as Tafari Makonnen in 1892, Haile Selassie was destined to become a transformative figure in Ethiopian history. His ascent through Ethiopia's aristocracy was marked by relentless determination and unwavering commitment to the welfare of his people. As he matured, his keen intellect and diplomatic prowess earned him respect among the nation's nobility, and in 1930 he ascended the throne as Emperor Haile Selassie. His enthronement was not merely a personal triumph, but symbolized a new era for Ethiopia. As tradition blended harmoniously with progress, recognized as the Lion of Judah, Haile Selassie sought to modernize Ethiopia, initiating reforms that touched on education, infrastructure, and governance. His visionary leadership spurred efforts to modernize the nation while preserving its ancient cultural and religious traditions. The grandeur of his coronation drew international acclaim. Dignitaries and leaders from around the world were captivated by the spectacle and the promise of a revitalized Ethiopia. His reign heralded a time of transformation, as he established institutions and policies that would lay the groundwork for Ethiopia's development. Yet the rise of the lion was soon overshadowed by the looming threat of foreign invasion. Even as he championed progress, his country faced the harsh realities of a world in turmoil. Despite these challenges, Haile Selassie's legacy endures as a testament to the power of visionary leadership and resilience in the face of adversity. His journey from a noble-born child to a revered emperor encapsulates the spirit of a nation committed to forging a future where tradition and modernity could coexist, paving the way for enduring change and unity. His early reforms laid the foundation for significant modernization projects, inspiring future generations of Ethiopian leaders. His ability to integrate time-honored traditions with new governance models made him a symbol of hope and resilience, revered both locally and globally. Having risen as a symbol of modernization and progress, Emperor Haile Selassie now faced an unprecedented trial. In 1935, Benito Mussolini's fascist Italy launched a brutal invasion of Ethiopia. The powerful Italian forces, armed with modern weaponry and a ruthless imperial ambition, quickly overran parts of the nation, leaving a trail of devastation in their wake. Despite the courage and tenacity of Ethiopian fighters, the tide of war forced the Lion of Judah into exile as he sought refuge and international support to save his homeland. In exile, Haile Selassie transformed his personal plight into a global crusade for justice. His journey took him to the heart of international diplomacy, where he fervently pleaded for aid and intervention against fascist aggression. In 1936, his historic speech before the League of Nations resonated deeply with a world weary of conflict and oppression. With unwavering conviction, he denounced the cruelty of Mussolini's regime, calling on nations to unite in defense of sovereignty and human dignity. His impassioned address not only exposed the brutal realities of the invasion, but also highlighted the urgent need for global solidarity. The emperor's words reverberated across continents, stirring the conscience of the international community. Despite the isolation and hardships of exile, Haile Selassie maintained hope for Ethiopia's future. As World War II reshaped global alliances, the tides of fortune eventually turned. In 1941, with the support of the Allied forces, he returned victorious, reclaiming his throne and ushering in a renewed era of hope and resilience for his people. His return marked a decisive turning point, not only restoring national pride, but also affirming the power of global solidarity. Following his victorious return, Haile Selassie dedicated himself to revitalizing Ethiopia, marking the dawn of an era defined by ambitious reforms and grand national aspirations. Believing that modernization was crucial for a prosperous future, the emperor embarked on initiatives that spanned infrastructure, education, and military reform. Massive projects were undertaken to build roads, bridges, and communication networks that would knit together the vast and diverse regions of his empire, fueling economic growth and enhancing connectivity. Concurrently, Selassie reformed the educational system, establishing new schools and universities to nurture an enlightened generation. His focus on education aimed not only to improve literacy, but also to instill a sense of national pride and progress. These efforts were complemented by strategic improvements in the military, ensuring that Ethiopia could defend its newfound advancements and maintain stability in an increasingly turbulent region. On the international stage, Ethiopia emerged as a beacon of hope and cooperation. Recognizing the importance of global solidarity, Selassie played a critical role in the formation of the United Nations, with Ethiopia becoming one of its founding members. His diplomatic acumen further positioned the nation as a pivotal player in the fight for African unity. Under his leadership, Ethiopia was instrumental in the establishment of the Organization of African Unity, which sought to forge stronger bonds among African nations and promote collective self-determination. Yet, beneath the gleam of these golden years, subtle fissures began to appear. The rapid pace of modernization and reform stirred tensions among traditional communities, and disparities in wealth and opportunity started to surface. These internal challenges hinted at deeper issues within the empire, setting the stage for debates on how best to balance progress with the country's rich heritage. Despite these growing complexities, Selassie's legacy during this transformative period remains a powerful symbol of Ethiopia's enduring quest for modernity and unity. As Ethiopia entered the 1960s, the dazzling promise of modernization began to reveal its darker undercurrents. While Emperor Haile Selassie continued to be venerated as a divine symbol and a living legend of Ethiopian resilience, growing voices of dissent increasingly challenged his rule. The rapid strides in infrastructure, education, and military strength brought hope to many urban centers, yet these advances deepened the chasm between a modern elite and rural communities mired in poverty and tradition. Economic disparity emerged as a central grievance. Wealth generated by industrial and developmental progress was concentrated in the hands of a few, leaving vast segments of the population marginalized and overlooked. The stark contrast between burgeoning cityscapes and neglected rural areas fueled resentment, as many felt that the benefits of progress were not being shared equitably. While some admired the emperor's vision, others saw his leadership as disconnected from the daily struggles of ordinary Ethiopians. The crisis reached a dramatic turning point with a devastating famine in the Wawo region from 1972 to 1974. This catastrophe laid bare long-standing governmental inefficiencies and a lack of effective relief measures. As starvation and disease ravaged communities, public trust in the administration eroded rapidly. The suffering inflicted by the famine stirred anger among civilians and sowed seeds of discontent within the military ranks, whose loyalty began to waver. In this climate of escalating frustration, dissent became increasingly organized. Intellectuals, farmers, and urban workers voiced their demands for a more responsive and just governance. The once revered image of Haile Selassie as a divine ruler was now being questioned, as the call for substantive reform grew louder, setting the stage for profound political change in Ethiopia. These growing tensions foreshadowed the turbulent transformations that would soon reshape Ethiopia, ushering in an era of revolutionary upheaval and lasting national change. In September 1974, after years of escalating discontent and mounting public outrage, a dramatic turning point emerged in Ethiopia's storied history. Amid the chaos, a faction of military officers, known collectively as the Derg, seized control of the government with a swift and ruthless coup. The uprising, fueled by deep-seated grievances and a loss of faith in the imperial administration, culminated in the deposition of Emperor Haile Selassie, whose once unassailable authority was now irretrievably diminished. The coup unfolded with relentless precision. Derg forces moved decisively, rounding up high-ranking ministers and influential officials, many of whom were soon imprisoned or summarily executed. Within days, the venerable imperial government crumbled, replaced by a new military regime intent on remaking the nation through strict control and repressive measures. The once mighty emperor, long venerated as the embodiment of Ethiopian tradition and resilience, was confined to the Grand Palace, a grim reminder of a fading era. Shockwaves from the coup resonated far beyond Ethiopia's borders, as the international community observed with dismay the abrupt end of a cherished monarchy. The dramatic overthrow marked not only the termination of Haile Selassie's rule, but also the onset of a tumultuous period defined by political purges, social unrest, and systematic repression. The promise of continuity and gradual progress was abandoned in favor of radical, enforced change. As the Derg consolidated its power, Ethiopia embarked on a dark chapter of its history, where the legacy of past glories was overshadowed by the brutal realities of military dictatorship. The sweeping changes initiated by the coup would reshape the nation's destiny, leaving deep scars on its social and political fabric for generations to come. This pivotal moment shattered the centuries-old imperial order and ignited a debate about Ethiopia's future. The revolution's scars would shape national discourse for many years ahead. Under the harsh glare of a new regime, the fate of Haile Selassie, the once mighty Lion of Judah, was sealed in sorrow and isolation. Following the violent coup, the emperor was confined within the imposing walls of the Grand Palace, a gilded cage where he was cut off from the nation he had led for decades. The loyal guards of yesteryear were replaced by soldiers whose eyes betrayed hostility, symbolizing the end of an era and the rise of a brutal new order. The Derg, determined to rewrite history, systematically targeted every symbol of Selassie's legacy. Statues and portraits that once celebrated his reign were removed from public spaces, and any mention of his rule was met with denunciation. Within the confines of his isolation, the emperor witnessed the erasure of his contributions to Ethiopia's modernization. The ambitious reforms he had once championed, from infrastructural development to educational expansion, were overshadowed by an atmosphere of fear and repression. Each passing day, the cold walls of the palace echoed with the silence of abandonment and despair. In these lonely moments, the echoes of a vibrant past clashed with the bleak reality of his confinement. The nation that once revered his vision now turned its gaze away, unable to reconcile the glory of his early years with the turmoil that now defined the country. As the Derg solidified its grip on power, Selassie's prospects dwindled. Internationally, whispers of his demise began to circulate, and the world watched in dismay as the dignified ruler was reduced to a prisoner of his own legacy. Isolated and weakened, his days were numbered, marking the tragic fall of a leader who had once inspired a nation and commanded respect on the global stage. His final days, shrouded in sorrow and resignation, unequivocally signaled an era's end. On August 27, 1975, the shadow of death fell upon Ethiopia's once revered emperor, Haile Selassie. Official accounts claimed that he died of natural causes, a quiet passing in a world already in turmoil. However, the truth that later emerged was far more sinister. Evidence accumulated over time revealed that the emperor was strangled in his bed, a calculated act carried out by military officers acting on orders from the brutal Derg regime. This shocking betrayal by those entrusted with the nation's protection marked a turning point in Ethiopian history. In the dark, foreboding halls of the palace, where Haile Selassie had once presided over ceremonies and guided the destiny of a nation, the dignity of his reign was extinguished in an act of unspeakable violence. His lifeless body was concealed in a most undignified manner, hastily buried beneath a toilet in the palace grounds. This gruesome disposal of the remains of a once revered leader symbolized the Derg's determination to erase all traces of the imperial legacy and obliterate any memory of his enlightened rule. As word of the emperor's untimely and brutal demise spread, the nation was plunged into shock and sorrow. The true circumstances surrounding his death slowly surfaced, igniting outrage among those who had long cherished the hope and stability he represented. In the wake of this act of treachery, the spirit of an era was consigned to the shadows, leaving Ethiopia scarred by the loss of its majestic leader and haunted by the brutal actions of those who claimed to serve its future. The fall of Haile Selassie signaled not only the end of an illustrious chapter, but also the beginning of a dark legacy that would forever shadow the nation's collective memory. Thus, the tragic demise of Haile Selassie remains an enduring, somber lesson in history. The aftermath of Haile Selassie's brutal demise reverberated far beyond Ethiopia's borders. While the international community mourned the loss of a leader who had once symbolized hope and resilience, Ethiopia itself plunged into a period of profound turmoil and despair. The Derg, having seized power with ruthless efficiency, imposed an authoritarian regime marked by systemic brutality and a relentless drive to silence any vestige of the old imperial order. Loyal supporters of the late emperor, who had cherished his vision for modernization and unity, found themselves marginalized and persecuted under the new regime. In this climate of fear, dissent was ruthlessly suppressed, and memories of a once glorious era were deliberately erased. The Derg's regime targeted cultural icons, dismantling monuments and erasing historical records that celebrated the Lion of Judah. The loss of these symbols was not merely an attack on history, but an assault on the very identity of the Ethiopian people. As everyday life became overshadowed by repression, a deep sense of collective grief and injustice spread throughout the nation. Compounding the sorrow was the mystery surrounding Selassie's final resting place. For years, the whereabouts of his burial site remained hidden, a symbol of the regime's determination to expunge his legacy from the public consciousness. However, in 1992, a significant breakthrough occurred when his remains were finally rediscovered, igniting hope among those who yearned for justice and reconciliation. In 2000, after years of neglect and obscurity, his remains received a dignified reburial at Holy Trinity Cathedral. This act of remembrance offered a measure of solace to a grieving nation, acknowledging the enduring impact of an emperor whose legacy continues to inspire even amid the scars of history. In the years following his reburial, Ethiopians have gradually come to terms with their past, seeking healing and unity amid lingering wounds today. Despite his tragic end, the legacy of Haile Selassie endures as a beacon of hope, unity, and resilience in Ethiopia and beyond. Though the Lion of Judah was ultimately silenced, his influence continues to shape generations and inspire movements for freedom and justice. To Rastafarians and many others around the world, he remains a divine figure, a symbol of African unity, resistance against oppression, and the unyielding spirit of a people striving for dignity. Haile Selassie's contributions to Ethiopia's modernization and his efforts to foster continental solidarity have cemented his place in history as one of Africa's most significant rulers. His visionary reforms in education, infrastructure, and international diplomacy created a foundation for progress that still resonates today. Statues, memorials, and scholarly works celebrate his life and the ideals he championed, reminding us that even in the face of overwhelming adversity, the voice of justice can never be completely silenced. The enduring roar of the Lion of Judah continues to echo through time, inspiring not only those who remember his reign, but also future generations seeking empowerment and unity. His legacy, both as a transformative leader and as an emblem of hope, remains a vital force in the ongoing struggle for a more just and harmonious world. His spirit endures eternally, forever. In conclusion, the life of Haile Selassie, the Lion of Judah, remains a timeless testament to resilience, vision, and leadership. His journey, from imperial ascension to tragic demise, continues to inspire generations, symbolizing hope and unity in the face of adversity. Though his reign ended in sorrow, his enduring legacy illuminates the power of determination, and the spirit of resistance against oppression. If you are moved by such profound stories of legendary figures and wish to explore more tales that shape our world, subscribe to Stories of Legends. Join us as we delve deeper into the lives of iconic leaders whose legacies continue to resonate with the world. Experience history with us today,